Welcome to the Sutherland Report. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring on my dear friend John, Mr. John Haller, and we have much to talk about. Basically, it's the Doha Forum. I've also got a second guest, which I'm just going to quickly bring on once I bring John on. John, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm just going to bring on our second guest just in case, because we must bring him on now. Oh,
Yes,
oh,
yes.
Mr. Tucker, ha ha ha, Doha
You met
Forum. There he is.
you caught him without his new Muslim headdress,
I
Arab
think I
headdress.
did. I think I did, John. Oh dear, exocets will come in for that. But that is important to actually underline, isn't it, sir? Because with what we're going to discuss, there is no way I'm saying we know everything. Events are moving so fast. You and I are constantly saying this, but people don't seem to understand what's going on. And then suddenly, what is this gentleman doing in the Doha Forum? But we will get down to that. John, the Doha Forum has caused quite a lot of concern for you and I. Do you want to take it in any direction you want? I've got something I want to read shortly. But what are our major concerns other than looking at all the sponsors, the interviews involving, I think, 160 odd countries, 470 speakers? And let's just remind ourselves this gentleman was there too.
Yeah, Donald Trump Jr. was there.
Yep.
There were some other Americans there, and some of those were not what I would consider to be the most upstanding people. One was a guy named Robert Malley, who was on a panel. If you remember, Robert Malley was one of the Middle East pro-Iranian people under the Obama administration that pushed for the normalization of ties with Iran, the Iranian nuclear deal, which Trump withdrew from shortly after he came in. And the one thing to remember on that too is that they wanted that to be a treaty. It should have been a treaty to have any kind of weight or enforcement, but Obama knew that he would never get it through the. Hang on a second here, I'm not sure what. Okay, my headset went out. So Obama went through the. He didn't. He knew it would never get passed by 2/3 of the Senate, so he just made it into sort of a contractual agreement. But Malley was one of the key people behind that. And if you remember, there was a pretty big scandal. I think I'm trying to remember who was the first one to talk about it. It was a website called Semaphore. They had done a big article about the pro-Iranian people within the U.S. State Department. And we don't even know if all those people have been eradicated in all the little purges that Trump has done. But at this point, it doesn't look like they have been. That's what's really troubling about all of this. That Trump has come out in the last few days saying what a great ally Qatar is, and I don't know what to make of it. A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, Trump's just fooling them. He's playing 5D chess and everything." But I'm like, I really don't see it, Mark. I don't see this as a case of 5D chess. I see this as a case of us capitulating to the main funder of Muslim Brotherhood causes in the world today. And that's Qatar. And Qatar is a very interesting country. It wouldn't be a country without an American base there, that's for sure. But they exploit us. They use it. They have spent billions, literally billions of dollars, many, many times more than APAC or any other government has spent funding universities, think tanks, that sort of thing. And I mean, it's in the billions of dollars. And I think there's a direct connection between the reaction to October 7th and the way things went on the university. Now, you and I were just down there together. We were down at the at the border at the near Oz, the kibbutz near Oz, also the Nova Festival site just probably a month ago, a little over a month ago. And it's interesting. I mean, I think when you're there, you really get a sense of the size and scope of what happened. When I was at Nova, I don't think you were in the group that I was talking to, talking to the first responder to get to the Nova site, as he saw women that had been raped, mutilated, dead bodies all over the place. I'm even told that some of the soldiers, when they got there, they found somebody, a group of these people who had come across the border, not all Hamas, by the way, using a severed head to play soccer as a soccer ball. So the atrocities were awful. And the interesting thing was, though, that almost immediately, the university campuses in the United States and the UK, almost all at once, started calling it a genocide. Israel was at fault, and to cover up what had actually happened on October 7th.
Well, the other thing is people have reported that there were these Telegram groups, and they seemed dormant, and then a few hours before the attack on October the 7th, 2023, that they suddenly all came alive.
They all activated at almost the exact same time.
Absolutely.
Various Telegram groups and that type of thing that were there but dormant, but they came active hours before the attack occurred.
And you're absolutely right. They have spent, other people greater than us have proven that. They've spent billions and billions of dollars, and there is no doubt about it that a number of people are really researching Qatar like they have for a long time, and what they're doing, and without naming schools or whatever, but they, of course, university funding over here gone into certain private schools as well. So for a country of 300,000 with slave labor as well, and this huge influence, and I think there was one tweet I'd seen. I have a funny feeling, I think it's from dear Lara Luma, who's been doing some great work, and saying that there was an influencer they were trying to get down there, and she refused to go, and they were offering $500,000 to get this person to go. So the kind of money that they have been paying people to attend, and the sponsorship, has just been off the charts, as you and I would say. But let's start with, I know we look at the now the present leader of Syria, and the fact that he is there doing a sort of soft pup interview with that lady that was fronting, or maybe she still does, Christine, I've forgotten her name, fronting
Christine Amanpour.
That's right. I'm fronting.
By the way, she's a Lebanese citizen.
Right.
She was saying last week to somebody that she was talking to that she was more afraid to come to the United States than she would be to go to North Korea. It's literally insane. So Al-Shar was there. This was the December 8th was the 1-year anniversary of the fall of the Assad regime.
Yep. And
Al-Shara being appointed or self-appointed to be the president of Syria, and shortly thereafter announcing that they're going to do a constitution. They'll have a constitution ready in about 5 years. Until then, he will be the president. I assume he's moved into the Assad palace. He may even be. Assad had his own private barbershop at the palace, and of course we know that Trump himself has said how good Al-Shara looks like since he's been cleaned up. And he was announced by Christian Amanpour at the forum that he was a former terrorist. It was December. So they celebrated the 1-year anniversary on December 8th. On December 9th, There was an incident in the Golan region between Syria military group and the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. I think the Israeli Defense Forces, they were having trouble getting things calmed down, and they shot a couple guys in the leg they didn't kill them, shot them in the leg intentionally to kind of get the situation under control. But the soldiers, by the way, from the Syrian forces were saying, Allahu Akbar, we're going to Jerusalem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's clear that the ideological roots of the jihadi terrorist al-Shara have not changed in one sense any at all. In his interview with Christian Amanpour at the Doha Forum, he was saying that terrorism is killing innocent civilians. And they immediately qualified that in the revolution that took place, in which a lot of Alawites were just slaughtered. And as you know from the meeting we had up in the Golan, they continued to attack Christians and Druze in the Golan region between the Golan Heights and Damascus and a place called Sweda, which I think was like maybe 12 miles away from where we were having the meeting. We had that meeting with the journalist who was online from there, saying he didn't know how long they would allow the internet connection to stay up. But nevertheless, you know, some groups in Israel are taking in, because Israel's expanded their buffer zone in the Golan Heights to protect Druze and to protect Christians. They have been able to get food into the not the Alawites, but the Druze and Christians that are up there in that area of the Golan Heights to keep them alive. And you're seeing, I mean, people are being slaughtered. They're being asked questions on the street. Are you Islam? And if they say they're a Christian or they answer no, they get shot. I mean, this is going on. This is real. And so this guy goes in a suit and he just says, so killing innocent civilians like Israel is doing in Gaza is terrorism. And when we took over Syria, we never killed one single innocent civilian. I don't believe that for a second. That's not.
Didn't he also accuse Israel? He said they're bombing ghosts.
Yeah, Israel keeps resurrecting ghosts to fight. And so it's I don't know, Mark, it's a crazy time. I mean, that this guy would even be given legitimacy, but he was just at the White House, you know, in early November, I guess it was.
Yep.
He was welcomed with a full state welcoming, not quite as elaborate as it was given to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia, but nevertheless, you know. And the interesting thing about al-Shara being at the White House was when Trump was talking to him in the Oval Office, sitting next to al-Shara, there might have been an empty chair in between them, was Fidan, who is the foreign minister of Turkey. And as I have said, this operation to overthrow the Assad regime was the dream of President Erdogan of Turkey. He has wanted to do this for many years, and he was very clever at biding his time until the right time. He could do this, and it was an amazing timing thing. He did it after Israel had pretty much beat back most of the proxies. The Iranian proxies around Israel had neutralized Hezbollah, which had a big presence in southern Syria. And so once that opening came about, the Turkish-backed forces moved in and went all the way and took over all of most of Syria, I would say south and west of the Euphrates River. There's still the Kurdish area up there that's still kind of a volatile area. There's a small U.S. presence up there. But, al-Shara has brought back Russia. He's brought Russian troops back into areas of Turkey. And it's very interesting, as they were taking over Turkey, they actually got the Russians to stand down. Putin, in his news conference last year, after the overthrow of the Assad regime, said that the al-Shara group had taken over Damascus, which was protected by about 40,000 Syrian troops, had taken it over with 800 people, 800 fighters. So this was a very well-planned operation, very well-planned operation. So al-Shara is running around like, well, I've never been, I don't know what he says. I don't know if he says I'm rehabilitated. He acts like it never happened. He's just put it down the old memory hole. It's a pretty stunning thing to watch. And I see him, I've seen him interviewed recently by David Petraeus about 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago. And it's the same thing. He's smiling and laughing. He's very personable and that sort of thing. So, but it's clear that this was a Turkey-backed operation. In fact, Trump trolls Erdogan every now and then. I think I've seen him do it twice. That was a pretty interesting thing, that operation you did in Syria to take over and bring down the fall of the Assad regime. And I know you say you didn't do it, but we all know you did it, President Erdogan. And I thought it was a very interesting, great operation that you did.
The thing is, it's all very well him trolling. It's all very well him saying that. John, I think we need to unpack this, because we've seen both you and I think quite rightly, along with others, have been calling out people like Tucker Carlson because of their views. Literally overnight, they seem to change, and now shilling for completely different sides, different opinions. We need to talk about this. So they've had this forum. Donald Trump Jr. is there. The leader of Syria, as was said. Israel is just
right. And by the way, when al-Shara walked in at the opening ceremonies, he was holding hands with the Emir of Qatar.
Right.
That's a very significant protocol thing that took place. So yeah, he was there on the speaker's list, and it's quite stunning what we've just seen unfold.
Why, we've said about the amount of money that Qatar has been putting into the education system in America, education system out here, education elsewhere. And of course, in the end, we end up going back to the Muslim Brotherhood, founded in 1928. And the fact that we have to say that after the Ottoman Empire declines, then this is the group that says, well, we want to resurrect it, and we will take our time. And then we look at what has unfolded and what is going on. But why are people like Donald Trump Jr. there? What is going on? We are aware. We know that there is the two emirs. We've got Witkoff, we've got Kushner negotiating the hostage deal. They're now going back to Russia, Ukraine. What are your thoughts, John? What is going on in the background? I'll just quickly end it with this. When you, in your talks, have put the picture of Tucker Carlson up, and people have sent, I'm going to say it, criticize you for doing that, where suddenly people are having to unpack what they have always believed via the media, via television, etc. Now they're having to unpack, and literally, we hope they do, peer behind the curtain and say, what is going on here? John, what are your thoughts? Why are these people there?
Well, it's interesting. I think we're in the midst of a massive Qatari propaganda operation. I think that Americans like Tucker Carlson, like Donald Trump Jr., like Thomas Barak, who's the ambassador to Turkey and the special envoy to Syria. And I would even suggest Witkoff and Kushner are all, and even up to the president, are complicit in this, allowing it to happen. And I get a bit irritated when people continually pass it off or try to give Trump administration a pass as, well, this is just 5D chess. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing what's happened. And I can go back to Trump, who says, from his first term, Qataris are a very bad group. Now they're a great ally. So I think that the kind explanation that I can give as to why this is happening, this is the nicest thing I can say about it, is that there is a massive problem on within the president's base of supporters. The anti-Semitism and outright Jew hatred that's risen in that area of the American political spectrum is absolutely shocking to me.
Yeah.
It's been very quick, and it's talked about all the time. And so so I think there are people that have much bigger agendas, like Tucker Carlson, as we call him, but that what you see what the president is doing is trying to keep a hold of the base, because we have midterm elections coming up next year in November. And, that could really have a significant impact on could change the balance of power in the United States significantly and effectively render Trump unable to do almost anything if they go the way they seem to be trending. And so what I think Trump is trying to do is to protect that base, to keep that coalition together. And one of the ways they do that is to make it look like we're not in the pocket of Israel. So we're going to go with the Qataris because they're as anti-Israel as they come. They've hosted Hamas. When Hania, the Hamas political leader, was assassinated in Tehran in 2024, his funeral was held at the Grand Mosque in Qatar, in Doha. For all I know, he's buried there. It was attended by the Emir of Qatar, the Hamas terrorist. And he lived in Doha, and he lived in luxury. He had a net worth of probably $4 or $5 billion that he had stolen from the Palestinian Arabs in Gaza, and it also stolen from various NGO organizations that contributed to Hamas. I guess he just sort of took his cut off the top, like all mafiosos do. And so I think the best thing I can say is that I think Trump's trying to hold his coalition together to protect. And I would say, I think it would be a good idea to try to protect the country from what's coming. But falling into bed with Muslim Brotherhood funders is a very difficult thing. And so when you look at the way the International Stabilization Force, which was part of Trump's proposed peace deal, it's never been signed by Hamas. Hamas has not disarmed themselves. They still have arms. Nobody's going in there. The only country who's ever going to go in there to get the arms away from Hamas is Israel.
Yeah.
The Arab countries that are in this 10 nation board of peace, or whatever Trump is calling it, they're not going to do it. Turkey's not going to do it. Turkey itself is Muslim Brotherhood. So they, and so, but if Israel acts, then of course the American woke right just has a complete hissy fit and meltdown about, we're being controlled by Israel. It's a stunning thing to watch. So But then again, the other part I think is that Trump is more concerned about deals than he is about geopolitics. They have I think the Trump organization has a deal to do a big golf resort in Qatar. I'm not sure the status of that, but clearly it's there. But even when you look at other things, Mark, for example, there's a big battle right now as who's going to take over Warner Brothers studio in
Yep.
Hollywood.
Yep.
And there are two competing groups. There's Netflix, and then there's also a group that's led by, I'm not sure who all's involved in it. I hear the Obamas are involved in it. But one of the main funders of that are people arranging financing, providing financing for that takeover is Affinity Partners, which is Jared Kushner's group, which has a big investment in the low billions of dollars by the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia. So there's a lot of money involved. And that's a big deal. And I think that has Jared Kushner's fingers all over it. I'm just troubled watching it. I'm sort of amazed that's going on. And Al-Shar is there. He's treated like a rock star.
Yeah.
In Doha.
Yeah.
And he's a terrorist. I mean,
well, there wasn't. I mean, John, let's just clarify that. There he was playing basketball, shooting a few hoops with one of the CENTCOM generals, and then wasn't that long ago before that he had millions of dollars of price on his head. I think the other thing is, to recap, the appalling events of the 7th of October 2023, 251 hostages taken, 1,200 Israeli citizens murdered, killed in such heinous atrocities, which we won't go into, but you and I have been told about them. We have, we've stood in front of, I'm just saying this as a statement, we've stood in front of the Beavis house, and we've been boots on the ground there, privileged to do so. And then when that day unfolded, and then as you've just pointed out, you've got the leaders of Hamas living high on the hog in expensive hotels in Qatar. So at the one point they're financing them, and then like now, we'll be all part of the peace and make sure all the hostages are released. At this time, there's still one body still be to find and to be released. So it's out of both sides of their mouth. This is what is going on. And then after all the blood that has been sadly shed by the Israeli Defense Force, now they've got 53% of Gaza, the yellow line. They've been constantly tested. Iran is rearming Hezbollah. Hamas, we'll see the same. They're testing it all the time. And when you made that important point about the fact that they're not disarming, am I right in saying that there was actually a video link to one of the Hamas leaders there at the Doha Forum? I think I've seen it saying, no, we're not going to disarm. And also, how often was Israel mentioned in regard to it's all their fault? And as you have said to me in a discussion, where was any residents of Gaza at the Doha Forum, John? Where was anyone there? They're not going to be. They're not going to be there. So within all that, just with saying this is the background, this is what has been going on. This is the concern about how everything's been played. And let's throw another one in there. Why is Kash Patel handing a old-fashioned machine gun that looks like it's just come off the set of some mafioso film of the 1930s to was it a representative of Qatar?
It was. It might have been the prime minister. I'd have to look up the the picture and see if I can.
Mm.
I mean, it's shocking.
Mm.
What's he? That's our FBI guy.
Yeah.
I mean, is that are they compromised on this? So he's with the Minister of the Interior at Qatar and handing him a machine gun. And they've signed a agreement to enhance bilateral security cooperation. And so this is part of what the problem is that. So you've seen recently within the U.S. administration that Saudi Arabia, who I do not trust.
No.
I think if you read passages in scripture like Psalm 83, you would not trust them either. But they're putting a big economic push on everything. In fact, the number 3 country in the world now in AI is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And I think the United Arab Emirates might not be too far behind. And the interesting thing is, and so Qatar is involved in this too. So Qatar wants to come in, but what the Saudis were able to do through the meeting in early November in DC with Trump was to become a sort of a preferred ally status, similar to what the agreement we have with NATO. If one NATO member is attacked, we'll defend them. Same thing with Saudi Arabia. And I believe that the Qataris are trying to get into that same status. And look, the Qataris funded Hamas. And now they're saying, well, we did it only because the Americans asked us. They have this ability to lie on a whim. I don't trust a thing that they say.
No.
And look, the funding of Hamas, the money transferred to Hamas over those years was problematic. I think people in Israel, throughout the Israeli government, on both sides of the political aisles, thought they could manage the problem. And then that didn't work. So now it hasn't worked. So now they have to find out what else they're going to do to solve this problem. But, the Qataris have hosted the leadership of Hamas for many years. I'm sure they get a cut from that. I'm sure it's financially lucrative for them to do it. But and so when Israel was negotiating, and I should put that in scare quotes, negotiating with Hamas over the Gaza peace deal, they were all in one place. And so Israel sent, it was a very different type of attack and operation. They were able to use, I think for the first time anybody's ever done it, is air-launched ballistic missiles. And by doing that, they were able to kind of get around the U.S. and Qatari air defenses. It was very much a surprise attack. And it allowed Israel to attack the Hamas leadership in Qatar. And by the way, the attack didn't work. It did not. The leaders had left to go into another room to pray, and I think had left their phones. That's why I don't think any of them were killed. Some of their underlings or relatives were killed. But Qatar took this, and Tucker Carlson in his interview of the Qatari premier at the Doha Forum built on this saying, well, Trump took the side of an Arab country for the first time against Israel in U.S. history. And that's a complete ignorance of U.S. history. Truman did it. Others did not support Israel. Even remember was Nixon back in 1973 who decided to go against all of his advisors and help resupply Israel when they were attacked in the Yom Kippur War by Arab neighbors like Syria and Jordan. So, but the Qataris, and so they're like, it's like, and then Trump went along with it. Trump, got all over Israel for attacking Qatar and trying to take out these Hamas leaders who were never going to enter into an agreement anyway. Look, they've said they've entered into an agreement. They haven't disarmed yet. So just stop with this nonsense, this narrative that there's some kind of peace agreement or anything like that. The only country is ever going to disarm Hamas is Israel.
Yes, absolutely.
And my view is let them go, let them do what they think they need to do. They're a sovereign nation. And it bothers me when I hear Tucker Carlson say, well, I'm an American. I'm going to buy a house in Qatar. I'm America first. I'll show you how America first I am. I'm going to buy a house in an enemy foreign country. And I'm going to support them every way that I can. I mean, it's pretty hard not to say that he's kind of an agent of Qatar after watching him interview the premier. And I would say this, look, Tucker, you're an American. You're free to do whatever you want. You do have that freedom. I am free to criticize you. I am free to tell you you're being stupid. You're being evil. You're wrong. You're unbiblical. You're all sorts of things wrong in all sorts of ways. And I'm free to support Israel if I want. And if you don't like it, if I can't criticize you, then when you want to talk about me doing it or Mike Huckabee, then just shut up.
Yeah.
That's the solution. If you don't want to be criticized for your sucking up to Qatar, then shut your mouth about people who support Israel. And what does he do? He says, well, you have a mind virus, you have some kind of mental illness that you would do this. And Tucker is I don't know how to say this in a nice way, Mark. He's inverting the biblical account. He's inverting everything. He started this about, I think we saw a little bit of it coming out. But about a year and a half ago, he did an interview with Munter Isaac, who's one of the guys behind Christ at the Checkpoint. Now it's almost 2 years ago. And in that interview, Munter Isaac is not, in my view, a Christian. He is a Marxist, leftist, liberation theologian that completely inverts the biblical story and calls Jesus a Palestinian refugee. It's a heretical view. And I've met this guy. Okay, I've been at conferences where he spoke. So I know what he says. I know what he believes. I've studied it. And I made the effort to go to one of those Christ at the Checkpoint meetings, and I've watched all the others. And I know what they say. So don't try to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I do. And Tucker furthered that. And our mutual friend who we spent some time with in Israel, Dumasani Washington, and I cannot remember her name. She's with the Epic Times. Dumasani and she wrote a great article in April 2024 in Tablet Magazine titled The Arsonist. And the subtitle was something along the lines, Tucker Carlson tries to burn down the remaining bridges between evangelicals and Israel.
Yeah.
And he's continued on that path. And so you see this. So he interviews a Muslim Brotherhood supporter, a funder. They're the ATM for Muslim Brotherhood, Qatar. And it's all these softball questions. And how did you feel when Israel attacked your country? Okay, well, there's a couple ways of looking at it. That might have had a big impact on the Qataris. But again, it doesn't appear to with the way they organized and did this Doha Forum. And what they did and what the structure of that forum was essentially to throw gasoline. They're like the follow-on arsonist. Yeah. The second tier terrorist to throw gasoline on the fire that's erupted between that they're trying to get to burn down the bridge between evangelicals and Israel. And that the whole forum was designed that way. So back to your question. I have no idea really why Donald Trump Jr. was there. I think it's a very bad look. There were a number of people missing from the Doha Forum. There were really no Saudis, and there were no Israelis for the most part, and there were no Palestinians. that I know of at all, which is kind of interesting, since I think Amiat Chikli in the Israeli cabinet put the transcripts of the first day through AI, and Israel and Gaza were mentioned hundreds of times.
Yep.
And other things were never even mentioned at all. And so it was clear that there was a huge agenda there. I think it was successful for the Qataris. And remember, the Qataris, they did a lot of what is now known in the business, the sports world, as sport washing, where they brought the World Cup to Qatar like 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And a lot of abuses of people building stadium and that type of thing. A lot of workers died. And the Qataris are only 300,000 people. But the rest of the people that live there are, in many cases, modern day slaves.
Yeah.
And by the way, same thing up in the United Arab Emirates. There's 7 Emirates. Dubai is probably the largest, and Abu Dhabi is the next biggest of the 7. But there are only about 1 million Emiratis in the world. And so they do the same thing because they have all that oil money. And the Qataris have a lot of oil and gas money. They have the largest natural gas field in the world that they share with Iran. So it's a big problem, what we saw going on there this week.
I'll tell you what, John, I just wanted to read, there's a fantastic article by Mitchell Schneider here from LinkedIn where I grabbed it. But he's going on about America's special envoy just questioned Israel's democracy at the Doha Forum in the country that bankrolled Hamas, backing up exactly what we're saying, which goes back to Ambassador Barak. You sat at the Doha Forum and said Israel can claim it's a democracy, but what really works in the Middle East is benevolent monarchy. Israel can claim to be a democracy. I mean, frankly, without being rude, what the heck? Let me help you understand what democracy looks like, Ambassador. Israel has Arab members of parliament, Arab Supreme Court justices, and Arab soldiers commanding IDF units. 20% of Israel's population is Arab with full voting rights. They vote, they protest, they serve in government, and women vote. So they're undermining the comments made about Israel as a democracy, and in those comments wanting to undermine that and say that the only thing that works is a monarchy, and then of course forgetting we could go into the whole history and from going through the mandate after the Ottoman Empire, creating countries and all the rest, but that. Well, you and I need about another 2-hour discussion in regard to that.
Can I just read you a paragraph from David Weinberg's article over at the Miskov Institute?
Yep.
And I don't know, this may, this will be in the Jerusalem Post, or was in the Jerusalem Post on December 5th or 6th issue. And he says here, in the long term, the title of the article is Trump's Truancy. In the long term, Trump's ideological truancy is rigorously wrong. Rejection of moral limits in politics and ignorance of ideological currents in global affairs lead to incoherent or corrupt policy, or both. Combine this with narcissist craving for deals that ostensibly proves one's greatness, and you have a recipe for bad results. You open the door to gargantuan strategic mistakes and to deep ideological rot. Weinberg's certainly a center-right guy in Israeli politics. He's a lawyer, very hard-hitting and biting when he writes, and I have to say I agree with him here. So the other thing, and I know we're sort of running short on time, but just let me bring up one of the other guys who appeared at the Doha Forum was Zarif. I mean, Hillary Clinton was there. We'll let that one go because, well, actually, her talk, she was in some respects not too bad on some things. It's just she's like listening to somebody rub drag their fingernails across a chalkboard. But the was Zarif, the former foreign minister of Iran. And he got on there and he just said, well, we've never killed a person in another country. We have some proxies, but we're just trying to help them have a better life and all this stuff. And it was just a blatant lie, everything that he said. And it's this complete inversion of reality that we see all the time with these guys. So, look, Israel's had to expand their buffer zone up in the north because they're concerned about Hezbollah, leftovers, and militias. They have 5 points that they control in southern Lebanon. And I will say this, they would be, we were just up there, you and I, and you can see how close everything is. And it would be a huge mistake for them to let that, to give up those 5 points that they control. They probably should expand control. They should probably push everybody back all the way north of the Litani River to create a buffer zone. Because look, this is what they want to do in northern Israel, up around Metula and Kiryat Shimona, in the Golan, near the places that we were at a month ago, and then they want to repeat this in the West Bank too. And so there's this massive problem all over Israel and its borders, even its internal areas of Judea and Samaria that need to be dealt with. And nobody seems to really have a handle on what needs to be done. So look, all the America First people will give you what you want. We'll stop funding Israel and let them do what they need to do. Let them manufacture what they want to manufacture or buy it wherever they want. Take us out of the equation. Stop selling things to them that are, provide jobs for Americans. That's fine, but let them decide as a sovereign country what they need to do. And Tucker Carlson would never live with that.
Because, John, this is what's really, really important when people say, America is giving money to Israel defense. And what people don't understand is that most of that, of course, is then spent within the American border. As you said, it's providing jobs, but also with the military assets that are then used. All that data that is collected, it's testing the American armaments, giving all that data back. So it's not as straightforward as many American First people would like to believe, because America gets a heck of a lot out of that deal, and it's explaining that. And the other thing I'd like to throw in here is that Israel has it's sold some of its military hardware of defensive rocket launchers, etc., to Greece and also to Germany. And this is not a small deal. This is billions. So that then they could be in a situation by doing that they're actually then able to replace the money, if getting more and more of these deals that America is then giving them every year. Do you think, is that a fair point?
Yeah, I think that's an entirely valid point. I mean, look, there's, and part of that memorandum of understanding too also restricts some of the things that Israel could do with the money, or if they're getting aid from us, they can't do certain weapons developments. So, I think that within Israeli society, and we had some briefings on this when we were in Israel, they're going to have to make a decision. Do they just go it alone and forget about America? And I can just tell you, the Tucker Carlsons of the world and all the Jew haters of the world, they will scream bloody murder when that happens. Well, they don't want to see that either.
Well, I think that moment is a lot closer than maybe they think. I really do. Not that I have any sort of secret intel on that. You and I don't, but we're just assessing the mood. And you made a very, very good point. When we were way up there on the northern border, we used that phrase "boots on the ground" from a dear friend of ours, Audrey van der Clay, who constantly says that it's boots on the ground. There is nothing like it and it takes a number of trips in a variety of different countries. It takes a lot of work to go and do that, to begin to understand really the history and really where things are at. And you quite rightly bring it to that buffer zone. And we looked at, when we're looking over into the border into Syria, and reminded of 1973 when we were addressed by that reservist major, a great guy, and that was, where that's his area, that's his town, but reminding us of that tank battle, but that buffer zone that is then needed. And then people keep going in the past, where you've just got to give back this region. Well, hold on a minute, they were attacked in 1973. No, why should they give that higher ground back at all? So we see
you've been there and you've seen it. I think it's easy to conclude this is perhaps the most strategic piece of real estate on planet Earth.
Yeah.
That's in a area where there's a lot of conflict.
So, John, we're not date setting, that kind of language I use now. But what events do you see unfolding? So we've just had the Doha Forum, as you said, basically gaslighting everything and pouring more arson on the fire, and it's all Israel's fault. Basically, I just feel that that's what they're saying. Unsurprisingly, from their ideology. What do you think we are going to see unfold? We know that Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, is off to Mar-a-Lago, I think, for a week. So he's going to be spending time with President Trump. What do you think? Go.
So, I think one of the most important things I've seen in the last 24 hours on I-24 News the other day, I'm trying to find the quote here. It was a interview. It was a panel on I-24 News. It involved, hang on a second here. It was Ruth Wasserman Land, who's I don't know if she's a former minister or member of Knesset. She's with the Misgov Institute. I've seen her on the IDSF briefings. And she was saying listen, and so she's talking about what's happened in Syria. This is a very big deal, what we're seeing going on here, the conflict that occurred yesterday. And then what the soldiers are seeing chanting about, we're moving on, a river of blood is coming. So they're talking about doing what Hamas did, and they're chanting they're in favor of Gaza. So Ruth Wasserman Land, we need to get an interview with her. She goes, it's not that Israel is afraid that Turkey will use Syria as a stepping stone, but that in reality there is no longer a Syria. It's now Turkey that we are dealing with through Erdogan's puppet regime in the person of Ahmed al-Shara, formerly known as Abu Muhammad al-Jilani. Boy, that's a very astute, wise comment that she made.
Very much so.
So really, and so what we see, so when we look at this in terms of Bible prophecy and everything, a long time ago, I was told by Chuck Missler, watch Turkey. That's like 17 years ago. So what have I been doing? Watching Turkey. And I'm seeing a lot of things going with Turkey right now that are really pretty shocking. And Turkey was behind what happened a year ago in Syria. And now I see Erdogan's son, Bilal, appearing all over his social media. So I don't know if there's going to be a passing of the torch, but I will remind everybody of the poster that I've referred to many, many times in my talks about Turkey. On January 1st, 2025, Bilal Erdogan led a protest, pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza protest at the Galata Bridge in Istanbul with a giant poster. The poster that advertised this rally said, yesterday, Hagia Sophia, we took over the Christians. Today, Damascus, tomorrow Al-Aqsa, Jerusalem, and the Jews. So that's their battle plan, and everything seems to be pointing to that happening. And I think that has significant prophetic significance to it.
I agree with you. And at this point, my friend, you ending on that note and that very powerful statement by that lady on I-24. I'm just going to play us out, John. You and I see there are many conversations coming down the line because events are moving so fast. But just to thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Don't worry, and you and I will catch up very soon. I'm going to play us out. I'll say goodbye to you on the other side. But thank you, my friend.
Thank you.